She was forged in the era of dreadnoughts, survived the carnage of the world's greatest naval war, and saw action from the first day to nearly the very last. She started life as a sleek, fast battlecruiser, transformed into a formidable fast battleship, and became one of the hardest-working warships in the entire Imperial Japanese Navy. Her name was Haruna, fourth ship of the renowned Kongō-class, and her story is one of incredible endurance, relentless combat, and a final, defiant stand against overwhelming odds. Join us as we trace the 30-year career of this remarkable vessel. From her British-influenced design through 2 world wars, multiple reconstructions, and countless battles across the vast Pacific Ocean. This isn't just the story of a ship. It's a window into the rise and fall of Japanese naval power in the 20th century. In the early 1900s, Japan was rapidly modernizing its military, eager to take its place among the world's great powers. The Imperial Japanese Navy, or IJN, looked to the masters of naval warfare at the time, Great Britain. Under the Anglo-Japanese alliance, Japan gained access to cutting-edge naval technology. The result was the Kongō-class, designed by the brilliant British naval engineer Sir George Thurston. These weren't just ships, they were statements. Fast, heavily armed battlecruisers designed to outrun battleships and outgun cruisers. Haruna was the 4th and final ship of this class, and unlike her lead sister Kongō, which was built in Britain, Haruna was constructed entirely in Japan, though using many imported components and adhering closely to the British design. Laid down on March 16, 1912 at the private Kawasaki shipyards in Kobe, a first for a major Japanese warship, she represented a significant step forward for Japanese shipbuilding capability. Launched on December 14, 1913, and formally commissioned into the IJN on April 19, 1915, Haruna entered service alongside her sister Kirishima. As built, Haruna was a marvel of her time. She displaced around 27,500 tons standard, stretched over 704 feet, 215 meters long, and her powerful steam turbines could push her through the water at a blistering 27.5 knots, faster than almost any battleship afloat. Her main armament consisted of 8 massive 14-inch, 356mm guns, mounted in 4 twin turrets, 2 forward and 2 aft. These guns could hurl armor-piercing shells weighing over 1,400 pounds, 635 kilograms, out to distances exceeding 15 miles, 24 kilometers. For protection against smaller threats, she carried a formidable secondary battery of 16 6-inch, 152mm guns in casemates along her hull. However, as a battlecruiser, her armor protection was intentionally lighter than a true battleship's, prioritizing speed over sheer resilience. Her main armor belt was only 8 inches, 203 millimeters, thick at its maximum. Haruna's entry into service came during World War I, but Japan's naval role in that conflict was relatively limited in the Pacific. Haruna spent much of the war patrolling off the Chinese coast and in Japanese home waters. Her most dramatic moment in these early years came not from enemy action, but from a terrifying accident. On September 12, 1920, during gunnery drills, a defective fuse caused a propellant charge to detonate prematurely in the breech of one of the guns in her forward No. 1 turret. The resulting explosion devastated the turret, tragically killing 7 sailors and injuring others. It was a stark reminder of the inherent dangers of operating these complex machines of war. The turret required extensive repairs at Yokosuka Naval Arsenal. The 1920s brought significant changes for the world's navies. The Washington Naval Treaty of 1922 aimed to prevent a costly naval arms race by imposing strict limits on the size and number of capital ships. Battlecruisers like the Kongō-class, with their relatively lighter armor, were seen as potentially vulnerable. While the treaty halted new battleship construction for a decade, it allowed existing ships to be modernized. Japan, like other naval powers, took full advantage of this. Between 1926 and 1928, Haruna underwent her first major reconstruction at Yokosuka. The goal was to improve her survivability and modernize her systems. Horizontal armor protection over her magazines and machinery spaces was significantly thickened, adding nearly 4,000 tons of armor. Anti-torpedo bulges were fitted to her hull to improve underwater protection and stability. Her boilers were replaced with more modern, efficient types, although her top speed remained largely unchanged. The elevation of her main 14-inch guns was increased, extending their effective range. Following these extensive modifications, Haruna's displacement grew considerably. Interestingly, the official reclassification of Haruna and her sisters from battlecruiser to battleship didn't happen immediately after this reconstruction. It formally occurred on June 1, 1931, as part of a wider IJN category realignment, largely driven by the terms and definitions established in the subsequent London Naval Treaty of 1930. So, while the physical changes certainly made her more battleship-like, the paperwork followed a bit later, tied more to treaty language than just the refit itself. But the IJN wasn't finished with Haruna yet. As Japan's ambitions grew in the 1930s, and the era of the aircraft carrier began to dawn, the need for fast capital ships capable of escorting the carriers became paramount. Haruna underwent a second, even more radical reconstruction between August 1933 and September 1934. This time, the focus was squarely on speed and modernization. Her stern was lengthened by about 26 feet, nearly 8 meters, to improve hydrodynamics. All her existing boilers were removed and replaced with new high-pressure Campon boilers, coupled with powerful geared turbines. This overhaul dramatically increased her power output to around 136,000 shaft horsepower, boosting her top speed to an impressive 30 knots, about 56 kilometers per hour. Her forward smokestack was removed, and her superstructure was completely rebuilt into the complex, towering pagoda mast structure characteristic of Japanese battleships of the era. Packed with rangefinders, searchlights, and fire control platforms, aircraft handling facilities were added, including catapults and cranes for launching and recovering up to 3 float planes, typically Nakajima E-8N, Dave, or Aichi E-13A, Jake reconnaissance aircraft. Her secondary armament was rationalized, with the number of 6-inch guns reduced, and her anti-aircraft capabilities began to be enhanced with the addition of 5-inch, 127mm dual-purpose guns and early models of the ubiquitous 25mm automatic cannons. Now displacing over 32,000 tons standard, Haruna emerged from this second rebuild as a true, fast battleship. She retained the powerful punch of her 14-inch guns, but now possessed the speed to keep pace with Japan's fast carrier fleets. While her armor, even after upgrades, was still not on par with newer dedicated battleships like the Yamato-class, her combination of speed and firepower made her, along with her sisters Kongō, Hiei, and Kirishima, exceptionally valuable assets for the IJN's offensive doctrine. She was ready for the storm that was about to break across the Pacific. When Japan attacked Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, launching World War II in the Pacific, Haruna was immediately thrown into the fray. While her sisters Hiei and Kirishima escorted the carriers striking Hawaii, Haruna, alongside her sister Kongō, formed part of Vice Admiral Nobutake Kondo's Southern Force, tasked with covering the Japanese landings in Malaya and Siam, Thailand. A key part of their mission was to intercept and engage any British capital ships that might try to interfere, specifically the modern battleship HMS Prince of Wales and the veteran battlecruiser HMS Repulse. As history records, land-based Japanese naval aircraft found and sank the British ships Force Z on December 10th, so Haruna never got her chance to engage them. It was also on December 10th that Haruna earned an early, albeit entirely mythical, reputation for being sunk. High above Luzon in the Philippines, a lone B-17C bomber piloted by Captain Colin Kelly Jr. attacked Japanese naval forces. Kelly's crew believed they had bombed and sunk a large warship, which press reports quickly and erroneously identified as the Haruna. Kelly's B-17 was shot down on its return flight, and he was posthumously awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, hailed as a hero who had sunk a battleship. In reality, Haruna was nowhere near the Philippines at the time. Kelly's bombs likely hit the cruiser Notori, causing only minor damage. Haruna's war had barely begun. Throughout the first half of 1942, Haruna was relentlessly active as Japan carved out its vast Pacific empire. She supported landings in the Dutch East Indies, now Indonesia. In April 1942, she participated in the spectacular Indian Ocean Raid as part of Vice Admiral Chuichi Nagumo's powerful carrier strike force, which rampaged through the Bay of Bengal, sinking the British aircraft carrier HMS Hermes, 2 heavy cruisers, and numerous merchant ships. Haruna provided escort and anti-aircraft support throughout these operations. Then came the turning point, the Battle of Midway in June 1942. Haruna was once again part of Nagumo's main carrier force, screening the 4 fleet carriers Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu. During the catastrophic battle, which saw all 4 Japanese carriers sunk by American dive bombers, Haruna herself came under attack. Bombs rained down around her, and one scored a near miss close to her stern, causing some minor damage. But she survived the onslaught relatively unscathed, while the pride of the Kido Butai burned around her. Midway was a devastating defeat for Japan, shifting the strategic initiative to the United States. Following Midway, the focus of the Pacific War shifted south to the Solomon Islands and the brutal struggle for Guadalcanal. Haruna was heavily involved in this protracted campaign. Recognizing the critical importance of the American-held Henderson Field airstrip on Guadalcanal, the IJN planned a massive bombardment to neutralize it. On the night of October 13 to 14, 1942, Haruna and her sister Kongō steamed down the slot and unleashed a terrifying barrage. For 80 minutes, their combined 16 14-inch guns pounded the airfield and surrounding marine positions, firing over 900 shells. They used a special fragmentation shrapnel shell designed for shore bombardment, causing widespread destruction, destroying dozens of aircraft on the ground and cratering the runways. It was one of the most successful Japanese naval bombardments of the war, though Henderson Field's Seabees miraculously had one runway operational again within hours. Later that month, Haruna participated in the Battle of the Santa Cruz Islands, October 26, 1942, another major carrier clash where she served in the screening force, though she wasn't significantly engaged. In mid-November, she was present during the chaotic and bloody naval Battle of Guadalcanal, operating with the Japanese carrier forces attempting to support a major troop landing. Again, she avoided major damage in the fierce surface and air actions that saw her sister ships Hiei and Kirishima sunk in separate engagements. The loss of 2 Kongō-class ships in quick succession underscored the ferocity of the fighting around Guadalcanal. 1943 proved to be a quieter year for Haruna in terms of major fleet actions. With the tide of the war clearly turning against Japan, the IJN husbanded its remaining heavy units. Haruna spent much of the year moving between major naval bases like Truk Lagoon in the Carolines, Kure and Sasebo in Japan, and the Linga Islands anchorage near Singapore. She sortied on several occasions, often as part of fleets responding to American carrier raids or amphibious landings in places like the Gilbert Islands and Bougainville. But these deployments rarely resulted in direct combat. Her primary role shifted towards training and escort duties, preserving her strength for a future decisive battle the IJN hoped would turn the tables. During this time, her anti-aircraft armament was progressively augmented, reflecting the ever-increasing threat from American air power. Dozens more 25mm guns were added in single, double, and triple mounts. That decisive battle came in June 1944 with the Battle of the Philippine Sea, precipitated by the American invasion of Saipan in the Mariana Islands. The IJN committed virtually its entire remaining fleet, including Haruna, in a desperate attempt to halt the American advance. Haruna was part of Admiral Kurita's van force, screening the Japanese carriers. The resulting battle, famously nicknamed the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot, was an unmitigated disaster for Japanese naval aviation. American pilots, better trained in flying superior aircraft like the F-6F Hellcat, decimated the inexperienced Japanese air groups. While screening the carriers on June 20th, the second day of the battle, Haruna was targeted by American carrier aircraft. Despite her bristling anti-aircraft batteries, she was hit by at least one bomb near her No. 3 turret aft. The damage wasn't critical, but it was another sign that even fast battleships were increasingly vulnerable to carrier air power. The battle shattered the IJN's carrier air strength beyond recovery. 4 months later, Haruna would face her sternest test yet in the sprawling and chaotic Battle of Leyte Gulf, October 1944. The largest naval battle in history. She was part of Admiral Takeo Kurita's powerful center force, the main Japanese surface strike group aiming to annihilate the American landing forces in Leyte Gulf. On October 24th, while transiting the Philippine Sea en route to the San Bernardino Strait, Kurita's force came under relentless attack from hundreds of American carrier aircraft. The super battleship Musashi was sunk after absorbing an incredible amount of punishment. Haruna, though targeted repeatedly, proved remarkably resilient. She suffered damage from several near misses, which caused some hull leaks and temporarily knocked out some systems. But she sustained no direct hits and maintained her speed and fighting capability, weaving through bomb splashes and torpedo wakes. After falsely reporting the withdrawal of his damaged fleet, Kurita reversed course again during the night and passed through the unguarded San Bernardino Strait. On the morning of October 25th, his force, including Haruna, unexpectedly stumbled upon Taffy 3, a small group of American escort carriers, destroyers, and destroyer escorts providing support for the Leyte landings off the coast of Samar. What followed was one of the most mismatched and heroic naval actions of the war. The battle off Samar. Haruna and the other Japanese battleships and cruisers opened fire on the slow, lightly armored American jeep carriers and their incredibly brave screening vessels. Haruna's 14-inch guns engaged the American ships, contributing to the overwhelming firepower directed at Taffy 3. The American destroyers and destroyer escorts charged headlong into the Japanese giants, launching torpedo attacks and firing their small 5-inch guns in a desperate attempt to protect their carriers. Despite the overwhelming odds, Taffy 3's ferocious defense, combined with constant harassment from their own aircraft, and Kurita's eventual controversial decision to break off the attack and withdraw, saved the bulk of the American force from annihilation, though the escort carrier Gambier Bay and 3 screening ships were lost. Haruna, despite being in the thick of the fighting, again escaped serious damage. Following the ordeal of Leyte Gulf, the remnants of the IJN surface fleet faced a bleak future. Crippling fuel shortages meant offensive operations were largely impossible. In early 1945, Haruna was assigned to the Kure Naval District in Japan's inland sea. Her battle damage from Leyte Gulf was mostly repaired, and she received additional anti-aircraft guns, eventually mounting well over 125mm barrels in various configurations, along with her heavier AA guns. She was also given a coat of camouflage paint, but there was nowhere left for her to run or hide. The war was coming home to Japan. The end began for Haruna on March 19, 1945. American carrier aircraft from Task Force 58 launched massive raids against the Kure Naval Arsenal and the ships anchored nearby. Haruna was hit by a single bomb on her starboard side aft of the bridge, causing light damage. The defenders, including skilled pilots from the elite 343rd Naval Air Group flying Kawanishi N-1K George fighters, put up fierce resistance, but they couldn't stop the waves of American planes. A somewhat disputed report from Combined Fleet suggests a floating mine exploded alongside Haruna on April 2nd, causing minor damage and killing 2 sailors, though other sources cast doubt on this specific incident. On June 22nd, high-flying B-29 superfortresses from the Marianas raided Kure. Haruna was bracketed by bombs, and one hit her quarterdeck, again causing only light damage. She seemed to bear a charmed life, but her luck was rapidly running out. In late July 1945, the U.S. Navy's Third Fleet, incorporating elements of the British Pacific Fleet, launched the final, devastating series of air attacks designed to eliminate the last vestiges of the Imperial Japanese Navy sheltering in the inland sea. Kure, packed with immobilized warships, was a primary target. On July 24th, aircraft from Task Force 38 swarmed over Kure. Haruna was hit again, suffering more light damage. Other major ships like the carrier Amagi and cruiser Oyodo were sunk or heavily damaged and settled in the shallow waters. The final blow came on July 28, 1945. From morning until late afternoon, wave after wave of American carrier planes, Helldivers, Avengers, Corsairs, Hellcats, relentlessly pounded the trapped Japanese warships. Haruna, moored near Etajima Island in Kure Harbor, was a priority target. She absorbed hit after hit. Official records indicate she sustained around 13 direct bomb hits during the July raids, mostly on the 28th. Bombs tore through her decks, shattered her superstructure, and started fires. Sometime after 4 p.m., listing heavily from accumulated damage and flooding, possibly exacerbated by an earlier gash being submerged by the list, Haruna finally succumbed. She settled upright on the shallow bottom of the harbor at position 34 degrees 15 minutes north, 132 degrees 29 minutes east. 65 of her officers and men were killed in these final attacks. Her sinking, along with the destruction of the hybrid battleships Ise and Hyuga, the heavy cruiser Aoba, and the carriers Amagi and Katsuragi, heavily damaged during the same raids, marked the effective end of the Imperial Japanese Navy as a fighting force. Only the battleship Nagato, immobilized at Yokosuka, remained as a significant capital ship, and she too would soon meet her end as a target in the Operation Crossroads atomic bomb tests. For 30 years, Haruna had served Japan. Designed in Britain, built in Japan, she spanned the era from coal-fired dreadnoughts to carrier air power. She was modernized, rebuilt, and fought tirelessly across the Pacific. From shelling Guadalcanal to dodging bombs at Midway and battling destroyers off Samar, she was present at nearly every crucial naval juncture of the Pacific War. Her survival through so much intense combat was remarkable, a testament to both her design and perhaps a good measure of luck. But in the end, trapped in her home port, starved of fuel, and facing overwhelming aerial might, her luck ran out just weeks before Japan's final surrender. After the war, the battered, semi-submerged wreck of the Haruna remained a poignant sight in Kure harbor. Between 1946 and 1948, she was raised from the shallow seabed and systematically broken up for scrap, her steel recycled to help rebuild the nation she had served. The story of the Japanese battleship Haruna is more than just statistics of guns and armor. It's a saga of technological evolution, brutal warfare, incredible endurance, and ultimate, inevitable defeat. She was a true workhorse, a ship that gave everything she had, right up until the very end. So what do you find most incredible about Haruna's long career? Was it her transformation from battlecruiser to fast battleship, her survival through battles like Midway and Leyte Gulf, or her final stand at Kure? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments. And if you enjoy diving deep into the histories of these legendary warships and the conflicts they fought in, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on. We're always uncovering more stories from the annals of military history, and you won't want to miss the next voyage. Thanks for watching.